Welcome back to the final cast. I'm Brad,
I'm Josh.
I'm Brian.
and tonight we have David Feucht. He is the NRS rep over at NRS. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. We wanted to get you on the show and talk about some cold weather gear because it's a conversation that we've had here at Paddle and Fin lately, and we just thought it was a good idea to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've been having some inner podcast arguments, so we want to get this straight and see who's right.
No problem. I should be able to answer a decent amount of the questions, and if I need to follow up and provide any information on your guys' social media pages or anything afterwards to answer any specific questions people might have, feel free to throw them my way.
Awesome. Well, we always start, man. How you got into kayaking, how you got into NRS. How did that all start out for you?
Long story short, before I worked at NRS, I had a suit and tie job, pretty high level stress job, and kind of moved away from Moscow. That's where NRS is located, and found myself coming back to the area and started with NRS about 11 years ago. I started in their customer service department, and within the first year of working in customer service, I got the opportunity to take over a territory for NRS. So at that time, I was managing 14 states for that company, or for NRS. A lot of it was actually where you guys are located. So Illinois was part of my territory. Ohio had all the Midwest, basically, Great Lakes area, all the way out to the East Coast. So Virginia, Delaware, Maryland kind of area.
Nice.
About 5 years ago, NRS developed its kayak fishing category. We really, we had a couple key pieces before that time, which was the Chinook PFD.
Yep.
We really expanded that because we really saw how the growth of all of the paddle sports industry was kind of targeted around kayak fishing. So we really expanded it, and myself, I was an avid angler, primarily focused on bass, and I almost exclusively fish out of personal watercraft, whether that's a raft, a kayak, or a SUP board. So they approached me to kind of help, lend a hand with product development, marketing, sales strategies, and also take on the management of the kayak fishing team and ambassador program.
Very cool. What kind of kayak you fishing out of these days?
None.
You fishing off that NRS inflatable sup?
I am.
Nice.
This year was 100% all off of a SUP board. Got to do a few tournaments off of it as well. Qualified for the KBFNC off of that SUP board.
Nice.
Not that I want to take it, to a different level, but it was interesting fishing that exclusively this year.
Yeah, I know just from our paddle shop. I mean, we stock a lot of those NRS inflatable sups, and everybody loves them, man, because you can break them down. You could throw them in the back of like a sedan, and then just bust them out wherever. So it's cool.
Yeah.
They're affordable. It's something new that you're seeing more of for sure, which is cool. I haven't tried it yet, but
before that, I had a Bonafide, had a Kusa from Jackson, had a Feel Free Moken. So I've kind of gone through a few different fishing kayaks, and next year I might jump back into a fishing kayak. We'll see what I want to do.
Nice.
Will you be down at the national championship this year?
Oh yeah. Been since the first one and qualified for the first one, and I think it means a lot, not only for NRS being a brand sponsor of KBF, but for NRS to have someone from the company actually partaking in the tournament and fishing. I think it means a lot for that to happen.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's real cool.
Totally agree with that. How did NRS get their start?
You have to go back to 1972.
Oh wow.
The company started in Eugene, Oregon. Our founder, his name is Bill Parks. He was a college professor of business at the University of Oregon, and he was an avid whitewater paddler, rafter. And during all of his classes, he had some unique concepts on how to run a small business. And a group of his students actually called him out on that, and kind of basically said, "Oh, those are unique concepts. How do you know those actually will benefit a small business and work for a small business?" So, small little investment, couple grand. He started the business out of his garage, and it was a direct consumer company at that point. So we were a catalog company. Over the next few years, Bill took a job at the University of Idaho in Moscow. And from there, the company stayed in Moscow. And, now we're still a small business, but we're growing. We have probably about 150 square foot warehouse facility. We just built a brand new corporate facility, which is where you guys are calling me at right now. This is my office. But definitely growing, and it's what we develop is basically paddle sports products. We really don't expand out from that market, but we do build some crossover stuff like apparel. You can feel comfortable wearing that stuff around, just casually around town, bike or camping trip. But it's really focused around personal watercraft like rafting, kayaking, SUP, canoeing, sea kayaking. That's really our focus.
Right on.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I got a couple NRS hoodies. I bought one, and I was like, man, this is so perfect. And then I bought another one, and then I bought another one, and then I bought a sunscreen shirt, and then now I got shoes. I got a Chinook. I got this. I got that. It's just like, man. So you're welcome. I'm paying your salary this year.
Nice. Awesome.
Me and Josh.
Brad's rocking one right now.
Yeah.
I love this thing, man.
Yeah.
Ever since they gave me and Josh one at our paddle shop, I've been wearing it nonstop.
Yeah,
that's great.
Awesome.
That's my go-to for sun, for sure.
Yeah.
One big thing I forgot to mention about NRS. So when Bill turned just before his 80th birthday, he actually approached NRS employees to purchase the company. So NRS, I believe it's about 4 years ago now, or actually no, 2014. We've been a 100% employee-owned company, so that's something that's very unique.
That's very cool.
I mean, a lot of people know that, some people don't. So I figured I'd share that little bit of information.
Yeah, that's very unique. I think that's cool because everybody that's working there has got a vested interest, right? So, I mean, that just makes everybody want to go that much further above and beyond, so to speak. So,
yeah.
But,
Dave, I had a quick question in regards to your guys' products. How does NRS test their products in the field? Like, do you have staff? Are you sending these products out to anglers you might sponsor or have, deals worked with? And like, what kind of environments do you guys utilize? Do you guys take it out like in the harshest environments? Like what kind of examples could you give to us?
Yeah, the one thing with NRS is we're almost all paddlers here. So, we have a couple people on the Grand Canyon right now doing trips, people all over the place, and we're all active and actually participate in what we build. So we do a lot of product testing in-house. I tested the Varial hoodie, tested the new Chinooks. A lot of the fishing stuff I will actually take out and use and get a few miles on and report back if we need to change or modify anything. We will also include a few of our sponsored athletes into the development process and R&D. Whether that's a whitewater athlete or an angler or an SUP athlete, we definitely want to hear back from them. It's important. They're part of the process. Ron Champion as an example, us building those new bibs, the Champion bib and jacket. He's very influential in the process and how that product needed to look and perform. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a good dude to have on your team, no doubt.
Yeah. Saw that he was on a podcast with you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know how long ago, but
a couple months ago.
Yeah, it was like a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, something like that. Jay and I had talked about him talked with him on the OG show. But yeah, so I mean, the whole reason we wanted to talk to. Do you prefer Dave or David? I want to get that straight.
David Feucht.
You've been called worse, right? Yeah. I'm the same way, so I totally understand. So we wanted to bring Dave on tonight because, here at Paddle and Fin, we had a discussion going on about dry suits, when to wear them, wetsuits, what's the difference, things like that. So I think let's start out with the difference between wetsuit versus dry suit and maybe when those two are appropriate to use.
Okay. So a wetsuit is neoprene. A wetsuit is designed to be a barrier between you and that cold water, with the primary focus of it is being protection for your core area, keeping you warm around your chest area, and then you can go with a full wetsuit, which will have arms and legs. But that is the basic thought around a wetsuit, is to be a barrier between you and the cold water. It is considered wet warmth. So if you end up in the water and you have on a wetsuit, you're going to actually get contact with that cold water. But with the neoprene, it's an insulating layer protecting your core. It's going to provide you with wet warmth. Mm-hmm. A dry suit is going to be built, a full dry suit is going to be built with latex socks or fabric socks with latex wrist gaskets, typically a latex neck gasket. The material is going to be a waterproof, breathable material. So once you're all sealed up on the inside of that dry suit and you fall into the water, you're not going to have contact with that cold water, maybe your hands and maybe your head, but you're completely sealed up from that cold water. Now, if you wear a dry suit, just the dry suit with no insulating layers underneath there, you're going to feel that coldness through the material. You're not actually getting contact with that cold water, but that's why it's also important to layer up with some base layers, non-cotton type of things like polyester, spandex, wool, Polartec fleece. But I definitely want people to know, like, the wetsuit isn't going to provide warmth for you. It's a protection layer between you and that cold water. You're not going to have contact with it. So wet warmth is neoprene, wetsuits. Dry warmth is going to be a dry suit.
Gotcha. So, I mean, when would be the appropriate time to wear either? I mean, is it, because you hear a lot in our industry about the 120 rule, right? Water temp plus air temp. But I think there's scenarios there that sometimes folks don't talk about necessarily, like, for instance, a touring kayaker may be paddling Lake Superior, where the average water temperature is 43 degrees, but the air temp could be 70 degrees or 80 degrees. If you fall in that water, it's going to be pretty frigid, which, affects your core, so to speak. It's going to raise your heart rate, things like that, and you're worried about hypothermia. So, I mean, maybe you can help us, kind of dial that in. When is the appropriate times for either?
So the rule of 120 is a guideline. Right. There's many variables involved that will adjust that. But if you want a base guideline, the rule of 120 is important. What I want to emphasize here is there's a few things involved that will extend your boating season into the shoulder season of the months of the year. And one of the biggest things is a few of the golden rules of kayak fishing or kayaking in general. One of the biggest things is practicing actually getting yourself up out of the water back into your boat. How quickly can you do that? How far you are from shoreline? Are you paddling with multiple people that can assist? So all that stuff will fluctuate that rule of 120. But for the most part, for myself personally, I was in a dry suit in September in Idaho. You in Illinois, you're kind of maybe just minutely lower than us, but we're experiencing that cold weather and water already. But September 30th, we got our first snow here. Now, obviously, the water was at a decent temperature, but the air temperature was pretty chilly, being that it was snowing. So I was in a full dry suit at that time. I really don't mess around. If it gets chilly outside, the benefit with the dry suit, it's breathable. So even if you're in shoulder season type of weather, you can wear a dry suit and be comfortable. Now with neoprene typically will not breathe. So keep that in mind when you're using neoprene. If I was fishing, and the application I would use a full dry suit would be like surf fishing, where I'm actively getting contact with that water, that wetsuit's going to be a better option for me. Outside of that, I typically would suggest someone look at a dry suit. It is a bigger purchase item for sure. The cost, a good dry suit would be about $1,000 and go up. But comfort and ease and focusing on fishing, I'm always going to suggest going with a dry suit, especially when you get to that 60-degree weather and 60-degree water. It'll mean you won't. You think the best way to say this, if you buy a dry suit, you won't ever think it was a poor purchase. Especially how much it will expand your fishing season. You layer up, you can fish in December, January, as long as, the water's open, it's not iced over. But you can fish 365 days a year.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. I fished last winter, probably all winter, because of a dry suit. If I had open water somewhere, I was going out. But I think you touched on something key there, comfortability. Because you hear a lot of guys go, I don't want to wear one of those. They're uncomfortable. It's this and that. And it's funny, man. I get into arguments sometimes, and I know, that was one of the topics that came up in our personal host conversation was, are those things comfortable? And absolutely. I mean, so, you were talking about one-piece dry suits. So what about like a bibs and jacket set? Are you opposed to that versus a one-piece suit? Or which style do you prefer, so to speak?
So if you don't want to go with a full dry suit, there is something, especially if you don't find the latex gasket to be comfortable. So that's the biggest thing around your neck. You're not choking. You can still breathe. It is uncomfortable at first, but once you start to use it a couple times, that you'll get more and more comfortable with it. But there's something called a semi-dry suit. So instead of a latex gasket, you'll have a neoprene gasket around your neck. It's more comfortable. It's more flexible. The one downfall with a neoprene gasket is typically you can't trim it up and adjust the length of the gasket. It's there and it's set. You can't really modify it. But you'll still have latex on your wrist and typically fabric socks or a latex sock down below. So that will adjust the price down a little bit. So look at semi-dry wear. Your next option is going with a dry pant, dry top combo. The dry top and dry pant will have an inner spray skirt tunnel, or a skirt basically that you can incorporate into both pieces and create a one-piece system. Takes a little bit to get used to how to make that perform correctly, but once you have it all cinched together and sealed down, you basically have a dry suit at that point. Now, the disclaimer with that is if you take a bad fall out of your fishing kayak, if you're standing up and you're not watching, you hit a stump and you do a somersault off the front of your boat, you could potentially untuck that. So that will allow some water to get in and flush, and then you got to pull yourself back into your boat. So it's important to tuck it in. Typically, you'll have two poles, Velcro straps on each side. You want to cinch those down. But that is your other option too. You can go with a pair of Sidewinder bibs with an Orion jacket, for instance, that will mesh together and create that one-piece system for you.
Nice.
You mentioned the Champion bibs earlier. Is there something you can pair with that, or is that just something you don't use in water?
Yeah, the Sidewinder bibs will have fabric socks that are breathable and waterproof. The Champion stuff is basically rain gear, splash gear. So you're not having your main entry point sealed up by a gasket.
Mm-hmm.
The Champion stuff was specifically built for a tournament angler that conditions change and they need to adapt and throw on those bibs quickly, throw on the jacket quickly, and be able to take those off. So the unique thing with like the Champion gear is if you have a bigger pair of boots on, they have full zippers that come up the sides of your pants, so you don't have to take your shoes off out on your boat. You just peel those bibs right off. Another thing that we typically try to do with all of our splash gear is you can wear that jacket with a PFD over the top of that PFD. We don't want you to ever take your PFD off to shed layers out on the water. So we try to make things adaptable as much as possible. But to answer your question, Champion stuff, splash gear, if you end up in the water, that water's going to come through your main entry points.
Okay, cool. Answers my question.
Now, going off what you were talking about, hitting the stump and somersaulting off, what do you recommend if you weren't wearing a suit and you happen to go in like that? What should you do?
There's a pretty awesome video that I would strongly suggest you guys watch and your viewers watch. You can find it on YouTube. I think it was made in 2008. If you type in cold water boot camp, watch that video. So if you're not prepared for cold weather or water, there's a few things that will take place. The first thing is called cold water shock. If you do that somersault, make sure your mouth's closed when you hit the water because you're going to gasp for air.
Yep.
You're going to basically have about 1 minute to 2 minutes to collect yourself. It is cold. It's difficult to do. Your nerves are going crazy. Your muscles are probably twitching, and you're uncomfortable in the water. So hopefully, again, golden rules of kayaking is you're with a group of people that can help you, assist, get you back into your boat. If you're by yourself, it's important that you do practice re-entry. I think you're going to see more and more videos coming out, tutorials. I know a couple of our anglers are working on some right now. But how to get yourself back into your boat quickly, get out of that cold water. The next thing is, you'll probably have about 10 minutes total, 10 to 15 minutes approximately in the water to get yourself out, and then probably 30 minutes to an hour to get yourself back to shore and warm before, you could potentially, definitely 30 minutes hypothermia is starting to set in.
Yeah.
Probably about an hour, you're going to be close to being unconscious. So those are all things to be familiar with, but your time is limited. Now, the emphasis that I want to say is if you're not dressed appropriately, please, at least make sure you have a life jacket on because that will extend the amount of time. If you were in the water 10 minutes, more than likely, if you're not dressed and wearing a PFD, your head's probably not going to be above the water at 10 minutes. Absolutely. So having the ability to stay afloat, it's less fatigue. You can focus on getting yourself up out of the water back into your boat with a PFD.
And I want to emphasize wearing that PFD, not in the back tank well, not in the front hatch, like on your body. Like that's something we've always preached here, man. Like that's
especially. We do a thing, no wear, no share. We always, not just because we build the Chinook and build the Raku and other types of PFDs, but it's important. You could be an Olympic swimmer, and when we talk about cold water and weather, it doesn't matter. You could be the best swimmer in the world, and having that cold water inhibit your ability to function correctly in the water. it means a lot to have that PFD on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether it's cold water or warm water too. I just want to clarify that.
We always promote wearing the PFD.
Absolutely.
It's actually, I mean, it's written in some of our contracts for anglers too. No matter, I mean, even if you're not providing us with content, you got to wear your PFD at all times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My opinion, there's no reason you should not be wearing one to begin with anyway, because those NRS jackets are like insanely comfortable.
Yeah, it's not like in the 70s when NRS started, when you had these giant offshore kind of cruise line style PFDs. They're really trimmed up and they're comfortable.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a fly fishing angler or a conventional angler. They're going to be comfortable to cast in, comfortable to sit down and move around. Plus they have all the nice little features.
I can wear mine 8 hours a day and not have any issues.
Yeah, I mean, I did an intro to kayak fishing seminar this past summer, and it was to an anglers club, and it was mostly older guys, like kind of retired, and I had my Chinook sitting there on the kayak, and I can't even begin to tell you how many gentlemen came up to me and they were like, "That thing looks super comfortable. Can I try it on?" I was like, "Oh yeah, dude, I wear this thing 10, 12 hours a day." And they were like, "NRS, like, what is this? I've never heard of it. Where do I get it? This and that." And it was kind of cool because it's, I mean, NRS is known for being in the paddle sports industry, but I think you're starting to see it carry over into the boats and things like that. I even think, jet skiers are going to pull, start picking up on that, just because it's so comfortable. So I think it's cool.
Nice.
Yeah. It is cool.
So another guideline, use that 120 rule as a base, but also talk about the 110 and 1. So 1 minute in the water to collect yourself.
Yeah.
10 minutes to get yourself up out of the water back into your boat. And then an hour is the maximum amount of time you're going to have before you're potentially unconscious. So, there's progression and to actually, I can't stress this enough. I've done it. I've been a certified ACA instructor. You got to practice.
Yeah.
I know people don't want to do it, but you don't have to have your equipment in your boat. If you don't want to lose tackle or rods or anything, just take your boat out, go out on the water, fall out of your boat, get yourself back out of it and do it a couple times so you're efficient at it, and then add your equipment. At least you know how long it's going to take you to get out of the water.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad. Hold on. Brad and I are going to have a great video this summer, hopefully, of us practicing re-entry.
Nice. I dig it. Well, and that's the thing too, right? So you mentioned you guys are going to do it this summer, but I think that's key too, is you should try it even in this cold weather condition. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? So you know what you're in for. And that's one thing I wanted to touch on there, was, the 1 minute in the water. So, obviously, like you touched on before, your body's kind of going into this shock, like what the heck, and your heart rate is peaking. So, I've always been told you want to stay in that water for like a good minute, so it kind of brings your heart rate back down a little bit, calms your nerves and stuff like that, instead of just falling out and then jumping immediately back.
Yeah, just panicking and collect yourself, then focus on getting yourself back into your boat.
And Dave, isn't it? I've heard also that a lot of times when you get cold shock like that actually your muscles tense up. So trying to pull yourself up out of the water like that's going to be extremely difficult if you try to do it right away.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and there's certain things you can probably add to your kayak too that will assist. So straps, something to kind of help you roll your boat back over, get it right side up, and maybe a couple other places that there could be something that could help you get back up out of the water when your body's freaking out and you're not comfortable and fatigued and shaking and all that stuff.
Well, one thing I'll throw out there too for all the listeners is, I talked about this on a podcast last winter. David mentioned ACA. A lot of your local kayak shops, they'll do safety and rescue classes, like intro to kayaking classes. And I did some of those last winter through the kayak shop I work for. And I tell you what, like, you think you know everything about paddling, right? Like, we're fishermen. We're a bunch of boneheads. Let's be honest here. Like, I know you all are laughing at yourself right now, but you know, you think you're macho man and like, I'm never going to fall out of my boat. It's not a matter of when. It's a matter of, or it's not a matter of it's not going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen, right? And you know, go partake in those classes. Like, you know, in the wintertime, you know, our specific shop, we have a local swimming pool. So we do some safety rescue classes out of a swimming pool in the winter, like just re-entry alone, you know? So, I mean, and to be able to sit down with a guy like Dave, who's an instructor, and if you have a question about it, like, you'll get an answer right there. I mean, it's one of those things, like, you're going to have cabin fever anyway, so if you can go partake in that. And I think ACA offers some classes like that, too, at various spots throughout the country. You know, just go take a class. I mean, I saw an argument recently on a state kayak fishing page, and it was like, this guy was looking for, he goes, where can I buy a cheap dry suit, right? And a tournament director here locally that I'm friends with, he goes, well, what's your life worth, bro? You know, like, seriously, like, it doesn't have to be cheap. Yeah, there are some cheaper options out there, but obviously it's an investment to save your life. And I think that's what really needs to be stressed there. You know, that a majority of all fishermen, kayak fishermen, are boneheads, and they have that macho man mentality. B, get educated on it, and C, spend that extra money. You know, I mean, we always talk about here on the podcast, like, the most important thing is going home to your loved ones, right? And especially if you're going to be fishing the winter months, like KBF Trail Championship in La Crosse. I mean, air temps were between 40 and 60 degrees, but water temps were 45 to 48. Like, dry suit, I mean, it's a must. You know, you have to do it. And I saw so many. Go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
Our least expensive dry suit is a semi-dry suit. So you have that neoprene neck gasket. It's going to retail for $7.99. So that's kind of, you know, your base level. And the one thing when you're talking about pricing out dry wear is when you add more zippers and features to it, the more expensive it's going to be. So the top of the line dry suit from us has a full hood. It even has a little fleece patch with like perforated holes for breathing out of the face mask, tons of pockets. My number one thing when you look at a dry suit is buy one with a relief zipper built into it.
Yes, I was going to say that.
It will bump up the price, but you will thank all of us for that suggestion. Buy one with a relief zipper.
Yeah, I have the Sidewinder bibs, and it's got that zipper right in the front there. And I tell you what, if that zipper wasn't there, I would have filled my dry suit a few times, because I'm a man of like many cups of coffee throughout the day and all through the night. So it's key. Definitely invest in that.
Brian's dry suit turns into a wetsuit.
or Josh falls in the water in an attempt to relieve himself on the bank and falls back into the water.
Yeah, that would have kept you dry that day, my man. That definitely would have kept you dry.
I got lucky. It was just my arm that landed in there, but the potential to keep it rolling right down that hill. So
I did have another question though. Any other options other than a dry suit or a wetsuit? I know there's guys that use the just waders with a belt. How do you feel about that?
Well, so if you don't want to go to dry wear, whether a dry suit, a semi-dry suit, or the dry pant, dry top combo, use neoprene. You know, it will definitely extend your season, not the full amount, but you add neoprene to your apparel assortment to get you out of those summer months and get you into early fall or late spring. So add neoprene for sure. But my emphasis is, you know, if you are in warmer temperatures and stuff, that neoprene will get warm when you wear it. But at least you're starting to, layer up and insulate yourself. If you do end up in the water, you're gonna be better. Outside of that, we do have some base layers and things like that. Again, don't ever wear cotton out on the water. When we're talking about using waders, so let me bring up the Sidewinder dry bib. It's basically a wader. We don't call it a wader because it was specifically designed to meet the needs of a kayak angler that maybe will get out of their boat and portage through a shallow section. Or my favorite thing is I'm on tournament day. There's 40 people around me on a boat ramp, and they're all doing the butt scoot off of the shoreline to get their boat on the water. With the Sidewinders, you just walk right down the water, hop in your boat, and you're good to go. But when you look at the Sidewinder, it is a wader. You have waterproof socks, technical outerwear for your main build of the suit, relief zipper built into it. It has an integrated wading belt built into it. But the key thing that I want to emphasize is the Sidewinders are built like a pant, a dry pant or a splash pant, that you're going to have extra material built into your seat area, your knees, your thighs. It's going to be comfortable to sit down. In a traditional river wader or fly fishing wader, might be uncomfortable as soon as you sit down. And that's why you see a lot of people roll them down when they sit down into a raft seat, because they find it to be uncomfortable. So I don't know if that answers your question specifically. Yeah. Make sure at least you incorporate that wading belt with that wader.
Yeah.
That's important. Because if you end up in the water and you're just wearing a pair of waders, you don't have your wading belt on or cinched down properly, that water is going to flush in to that wader. Misconception, you're not going to sink. But pulling yourself back up into your boat is going to be difficult, because all that water, that weight is going to inhibit your chance of doing that.
So essentially, you could pair those Sidewinders with like a dry top and be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's why I love them. I don't know.
If you look at the waistband, it's neoprene, and you have your two Velcro pull loops on the waist.
Pull it tight.
And that dry top is going to have an inner tunnel that you're going to tuck that tunnel into the neoprene waist belt, cinch that waist belt down, and then the overlaying piece of the dry top will also have a cinch, Velcro cinch. So by the time you cinch that down and have it all tucked in correctly, you have a one-piece system.
Yeah.
And would that be cheaper than just a regular dry suit then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. Like the Sidewinder retails for about $450.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty spendy piece of product, but it's anybody that's bought one for kayak fishing, it's probably their go-to piece of gear. And then you got to think about what type of top you want to incorporate it with it. Typically, you're looking at $200 to $300 depending on that top.
Okay.
Yeah, I love mine, man. So I guess that's another thing, right? So for the waders that just have like the fabric stocking foot, what kind of footwear do you recommend? I know, like me personally, I wear the NRS Vibe shoes with that. I don't know if that's the wrong thing to do necessarily. I know a lot of guys wear the Sidewinder boots. Those are neoprene. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So with a lot of the dry pants in the market, I'm not going to specifically say NRS, but a lot of the manufacturers that build that item are going to use a thin, waterproof, breathable sock. So you don't have to necessarily worry about bumping up your shoe size. So you can wear a pair of tennis shoes with it if you wanted to. You can wear a neoprene boot. You can wear the Vibes. You can wear the backwater boots. You can wear the boundary boots. So that's a key thing with a lot of like the Sidewinders and dry pants. You don't have to bump up your shoe size. So you can wear something that you're comfortable wearing. Just wear something. Don't walk around on bare pavement or the gravel, sand, anything with those bare fabric socks. You will eat those things up. Fortunately, I can't say for all the other companies, but NRS doesn't warranty socks or latex gaskets on any of our technical outerwear. There's some end user stuff that needs to happen. We need to take care of that component of that suit.
I just want to clarify. I said Sidewinder boots, and I meant boundary boots. My bad.
Yeah.
I messed that up. You knew where I was going, or what I was talking about, but I just want to clarify for everybody else out there in the ether. So.
Now, traditional waders, they will have thick neoprene boots, booties, basically. So that's why wading boots are significant. Will allow you to accommodate that thicker neoprene sock on the inside.
Yeah. Now, I had a quick question. What other kind of gear do you recommend when wearing your dry suits? Like, what else? We kind of went over the layering type stuff, but you recommend some gloves, types of hats, anything like that?
Yeah, your head is very important. So it is a beacon for heat exchange for sure. So you can wear a beanie, you can wear something. We do have some neoprene head caps, basically, that will keep you warm, especially in those colder months of the year. So I haven't personally worn one kayak fishing, but it is an option to kind of layer up your head too. Gloves, I'm a huge fan of gloves, both sun and cold. It takes a little bit to get used to them when casting and handling equipment in a fishing kayak, but definitely in the summer months of the year and the shoulder season months, I'll use a thin fingerless glove, and then once I get in the colder months of the year, I'll use a neoprene glove, not a traditional neoprene glove, but one that's designed for an angler that will allow your middle finger, your index finger, and your thumb to kind of fold back, and there's a little Velcro loop. So if you're casting a bait cast or a spinning rod or fly line, we'll give you access with those three fingers to cast whatever rod you're using. But I'm a huge fan of using a neoprene glove in the wintertime. I can't tell you, before we design the forecast glove, I used a standard neoprene glove. And I would have to paddle to keep my hands warm to get to my fishing spot. As soon as I get to my fishing spot, take those gloves off and fish. And within minutes, my hands are starting to get fatigued and turn purple. And yeah,
I bought a pair of those forecast gloves last winter, man, and they do wonders. And they're nice too, because when you fold those fingers back, there's like the Velcro on the top of your fingers, so it kind of stays there. It's not like a little flap on the backside of your finger. So you can actually like fold it back, have it stay back. So it's nice and comfortable, and you can still, like Dave said, feel your fly line, feel your rod,
spinning reel, hooking that line and casting.
Yeah.
Do you guys lose sensitivity like while you're fishing? Like what, like you can feel bite wise?
Yeah. I mean, you got to get, it's like one negative,
right.
You're going to lose a little bit, but it's better than you can't
fingers falling off,
handle anything, like grab anything in your boat. Can't grab your pliers or your line cutters.
I asked because I've been struggling to find a cold like weather glove. My hands are perpetually cold all the time, even in the summertime, and I've gone out fishing a couple times when it's been cold, just bank fishing. And then I end up having to quit because my fingers will start to like really clench up and start to hurt. So I'd like to try those gloves out. So
definitely. I don't want to let anything out, but fingers crossed, I'm working on a different winter glove right now and got some concepts going on. One disclaimer, I'll be perfectly honest, I'm always truthful. Be careful on the forecast gloves and wiping your nose because of that
Velcro.
I've done that a couple
I knew
times.
where that was going.
Yeah, it happens, but it does all right. It gets the job done.
Yeah, very cool, man. Very cool.
You brought up a new design. Do you have anything else in store for 2020?
So the new boundary boots are coming out. It is a boot that is our number one seller for kayak anglers, is the boundary boot. It's unique. It's 2 millimeters of neoprene. It comes up higher above your calf. And the cool thing with all the seams, they're all taped, so you don't get that water saturation through the seams when you walk out in the water. We've done a couple new things with adding stability bands to the actual toe box area.
Oh, cool.
So it gives you extra side-to-side support. We beefed up the tread on the bottom of it, and then instead of having a Velcro hook and loop pull over the top of the foot, it's now a bungee system, and there's a little garage spot that you can tuck up all your extra bungees so you don't get them snagged on anything in your boat. So keep your eyes out for the Boundary boot. The ETA is kind of adjusted a little bit, but hopefully before the holiday,
cool.
we should have those in stock.
That's cool.
Two other fishing items, the skeleton gloves, which are those lightweight sun protection gloves. And I want to emphasize protecting the backs of your hands. It's important for, I'm trying to think how to say this, but it's one of the most commonly missed areas for sun protection and cancer, basically. So yeah. I typically will suggest everybody to wear sun gloves. I won't suggest people use sunscreen. One, it's damaging to equipment, line, tackle, fish. So wearing a pair of gloves is important. And then the forecast gloves were minutely redesigned. It was more aesthetically redesign on those gloves, but those will be coming out next year too for 2020. The majority of our other fishing line will not be changed, but please keep your eyes out for ICAST 2020. We will be revamping quite a bit of our fishing category. We'll have some new hoodie colors and the varial there. Couple adjustments to Champion bibs and jacket, adjustments to the Sidewinder bibs, more apparel options basically to keep you safe and comfortable on the water. Yeah, ICAST will be really big for NRS.
Awesome. I'm excited now.
ICAST. I dig it.
Yep.
We're not letting that cat out of the bag. Hint, hint. But yeah, no, that's cool, man. I'm out of questions. I think we pretty much nailed everything. I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about, Dave, to kind of get the word out for NRS about any other products or anything like that?
Trying to think what to say here. We definitely try our best to listen to the industry, listen to kayak anglers. For NRS fishing, our biggest focus is someone that I like to reference as an adventure-seeking angler. We're going to be designing these products specifically for someone in a personal watercraft. Like I said, whether that, looking at you using the Blue Sky to someone on a SUP board, in a kayak or in a raft, that's really our product focus. So it's really user-focused products and purposely built. So that's why the Sidewinders exist. That's why the Chinook pockets are configured in the way that they are. We definitely listen to the market. So follow along with us on social media, follow our anglers. I will be probably announcing our 2020 roster in January. I actually spent the majority of today working through contracts and updating people on things that we're doing and changes happening. But we should have a pretty awesome roster for next year.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Yep.
Awesome. I dig it. You guys got anything else?
No, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. I definitely learned a lot. I know I'm not a cold water fisherman or anything, but I definitely want to change that and definitely learned a lot about it. So
Yep.
Thanks.
I did have one more question because you touched on it when we were talking about the waders and that sort of thing. Because I have fished I haven't fished in really cold water yet, but when it's gotten colder. And one of the things that I did is wear river waders, just like we discussed. Mm-hmm. And layering under those things made it to literally the point that I couldn't even bend over to mess with my fish finder. So when somebody's in the market to get a dry suit, what kind of sizing recommendations do you have in regards to having those proper layers underneath?
Yeah. The majority of all of our technical outerwear will have a sizing chart listed online on our website or a dealer's website. So definitely do reference that sizing chart. We will typically want to get your height and your weight. We might ask for a chest measurement, but follow that sizing chart. Now, with a lot of technical outerwear, it will be built typically with a little bit of extra material. That extra material will allow you to layer up underneath there. Some layering pieces that I would recommend would be like the NRS lightweight, and then we have our expedition weight, which is our Polar Tech fleece. But layer up with some of those items underneath, and those are all built to have seams that are in places that will allow you to be friction free and move freely and be comfortable on the water. One thing that here's just a quick tip: if you do buy a dry suit with all that extra material built into it, you get into it, you zip it up. There's two things you can do: is pull out on the neck gasket and crunch down as low as you can go into a ball. Let that neck gasket go and stand back up. It will burp and take out all of the extra air inside of that dry suit. When you stand back up, it's going to be, you'll notice the difference. The other thing that I like to do with a dry suit, obviously you're 100% protected from getting contact with the water, is I'll walk out into water up to my waist or a little bit further up, and all that water, when you pull out on the neck, will come out of the top of the dry suit. And the cool thing, when we talked about practicing as well, if you do get the opportunity to buy a dry suit and go out and test it in colder conditions, you will enjoy it. You'll hop into the water, you sit there and float. You're like, I'm perfectly fine. Get yourself back into your boat. But that's a couple of things. So when you buy a dry suit, burp it when you get sealed up into it. It'll take out all that extra air. If you don't, as soon as you sit down in your boat, you'll be like the Stay Puft.
Yeah,
marshmallow.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Like Josh is looking portly right now.
Man, Josh let himself go.
It's pretty funny.
Very cool. Man, we appreciate it very much. Guys, gals, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Hit us up on the social media. Dave has offered to answer any questions that come our way, or I know, just comment or send a question to the NRS Facebook page. I mean, that's kind of how we got hooked up with Dave, because this all started between an inter-host discussion, and it was like, hey, this would be a great podcast, and so I sent a message over to NRS, got a message right away, and they referred us to Dave and said he'd be the guy to talk to on the podcast. But I'm sure if they can't answer your question right away, they'll find somebody that can answer it for you. So just want to say a huge thank you to Dave and NRS for taking the time out to talk with us this evening. And guys, it's like we mentioned earlier, man, it's very important. No amount of money can replace your life. So if you guys are going to be out in these cold weather conditions, spend the money, get the investment, protect your life while you're out on the water. Like I said earlier, man, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So with that being said, guys, till next time, tight lines, smooth paddling.